Welcome back to Building Extraordinary Brands. Today's guest is Cole Friedman, a designer, illustrator, and creative business owner who's built a reputation for telling it like it is and for designing logos that actually stand out. You may have come across Cole on Instagram at ColeFDesign, where his design work and advice has built a loyal following. His motto is clear: don't make boring logos, but that is only part of the story. Cole also runs a focused solo business working across logos, apparel, and packaging. And that's really what caught my eye. I've drunk some of his beers that he's designed, Better Beer here in Australia. He's got great work. And in this episode, we're talking about what makes a logo suck and how to avoid it. Logo design is a big passion of mine. And I'm excited to talk to Cole about this. We're also going to talk about how Cole manages client work when they don't speak the language of design, what it takes to run a successful creative business without burning out, and a little bit more as well. So Cole, great to have you on. Thanks for being here.
What an incredible intro. Thanks so much for having me. That was epic. Thanks for hitting all those talking points. I'm excited to dive into things.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, let's start with a little bit of your backstory. I'd love to know how you got into design, what led you to focus on logos in particular and branding, and then we can talk about your business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like my beginning start to it may be no different than others, but almost like a little bit of a nerdy kid when it came to like sports, wasn't extremely athletic. And I swear it came down to when my preschool teacher told my parents that I was just like much better at finger painting than the rest of the class. And as stupid as that sounds, like that small amount of encouragement, honestly, like just kind of continued to lead to me to pursue art, because it really was the only thing that I felt decent at. And so as the years went on, my goal was really just to make sure that my art was as like perfect as possible. I was really trying to create like bold and crisp illustrations. And even though I wasn't really able to do that on paper, when I found Adobe Illustrator at a young age, I realized that I could start taking my hand drawings and making them that perfect digital crisp look that Adobe Illustrator is able to provide. And so that led into a couple apparel ventures where I started my career in like the surf skate lifestyle apparel industry. And then that soon led to my first job in the design field, where I worked for a branding and logo design agency, where I kind of got a bit of my skill set when my feet wet with the logo and branding. But what was crazy about that was it was a creative agency, but really we just did like real estate brochures. And so I wasn't really able to, stretch my creative legs like I was wanting to. So I started my Instagram account just to put out the work that I really wasn't receiving in my day job. And that's really just what led me here. And that was almost 5.5 years ago.
Okay. So you made the shift from a creative agency or real estate kind of firm to putting stuff out on Instagram, kind of growing your personal brand, if you will. I'm curious, like, what was like running your own business like always part of the plan, or like how did you jump ship?
Yeah, I've always been super entrepreneurial, and I would prefer to work for myself than somebody else, and that's always been something that I've continued to like do, whether it's my first apparel company that I started in like 4th grade, or like even before that, I was like drawing on t-shirts and selling them in like
it's in your bones, hey?
Yeah, I was selling them at like recess, you know what I mean? Or and then even in high school, I was like selling shirts in the back of my truck, and I just loved it. And like my goal in high school when I started my first apparel brand, I wanted to get into my local surf shop. And I was like, all right, I was a freshman at the time. My goal is to be able to get into the surf shop at the end of the 4 years. And so like 3 years from now, I want to get in the surf shop. And then what happened is like 3 weeks later, I got into the surf shop. So it really allowed me to just like to scale really fast and like kind of learn some of these things and become my own boss and get my hands dirty with all the different things that come at you with a business owner. So I learned at a really young age, and I knew that I wasn't necessarily looking to work for somebody else. And then that trajectory of like starting my own Instagram just kind of catapulted me into that without even like really having the expectations of it.
Yeah. So then how did you get your first clients? Is it through Instagram?
Yeah, because when I started my Instagram, I wasn't even like expecting it to be my job. It really was just so that I can create the work that I wasn't receiving in my agency job, because it wasn't that fun. And so like then I started posting work that was like more surf skate, lifestyle apparel designs. And it was crazy, which wasn't necessarily like a game plan or a business model that I like thought of and did. But even when I give advice to like new designers that are starting out in the career, I always say like, put out the work that you want to receive. And what ended up happening was exactly that. I was just putting out work that I wasn't getting to do, and then people would see it and they started reaching out asking for it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, we'll jump into logos, but before we do, I have a side question here. So,
Okay.
in one of your posts, you wrote you haven't had French fries since you were 4 years old. Oh, I had to ask you. So, what's the deal?
Yeah, that one's pretty fun. It's just like, it's a pretty stupid thing, but I loved French fries when I was younger. It was my favorite thing. And I went to like an amusement park and I ate a whole bucket of fries, like to the bottom, and just so much that it made me sick. And so then my parents kind of scared me into believing that French fries were basically going to kill me. And so I was just like, all right, well, no more French fries, whatever. So I went a couple years without it, but I'm kind of weird when it comes to habitual habits. Like once I didn't have a French fry, I wanted to see how far I could go with not eating it. And so then it went to like my friends telling me that on this birthday, they're going to get me fries. And on this occasion, they're going to, but I never ended up doing it. So now all of a sudden I'm almost 30 years old. It's been like 26 years with no fries.
Oh man, you're not living a full life, my friend.
I'm like, just at this point, I'm so deep into it that I believe that something amazing is going to happen from it. Maybe that's ridiculous to think, but it's gotten me this far. And I just like, I believe that at a certain point, if I like whatever occasion that I do eat the fries, it's going to either be super celebratory or some sort of good luck will come back to me from
Yeah,
it.
you're at your 90th birthday, like finally I can have.
I hope it doesn't take that long, man. But if it does, that's one way to go out.
Okay, well, that's an unboring story. We're going to talk about unboring logos, right? So you said it straight on your Instagram. Don't make boring logos. So to flip that, like, what makes a logo suck?
Yeah. This is a funny question because like in reality, there's also ways to break all the rules and somehow like make them good. But we'll talk about like the overarching ones that just like you should probably stray away from. And there's so many like I'd love to hear you chime in as well. But like some things that just stick out would be thinking of the first idea that comes to your mind. Like usually, let's just use like coffee shops for example. This is like something that you see all the time. If you're ever going to go and do like a Google search on the brand, like the brand or the market that you're about to create, and then on that Google search, you see the same redundant logo over and over, whether it's like a coffee cup, a coffee bean, those things, then you're not thinking far enough. So the first thought that comes to mind usually isn't the best. And it's also usually what your client thinks of first. So like what value add are you bringing if you're just going to go with like that first initial idea? Furthermore, on like just small actual design details is like don't make it cluttered or make sure that there's contrast. Like if it's not bold enough or legible at small scale, there's a huge list.
Yeah, there is. You said something about going beyond the first idea. So how do you extract that information? How do you go beyond just like the initial like coffee bean or house roof for a real estate agent or whatever?
Yeah, I think of this as the same way as like internet domains nowadays. Like you can't just start a brand and like think of one word and put it into GoDaddy and get your domain that you want. Like you now have to either combine two or even three things so that you can get that unique domain. And I think of it the same way as this current landscape that like really every logo has been created to this point, So how are you going to come up with this unique concept that's different from everything that's been created thus far? And the way that I do that and try to push myself past the first idea is to understand the client and the market research. Find usually the initial period is just like finding like 10 to 15, even 20 different pieces of imagery that could possibly be used in the logo, and then consolidate down to hopefully finding at least three that you can combine together.
Okay. Nice. Well, you mentioned my inputs, and similar to you, is a logo should ideally be simple in theory. Like, there's different styles of logos, but simple logos are more memorable. I think a great logo is more memorable. I really enjoy clever logos, but it's not necessarily always appropriate. But I think the clever logos are more memorable, and I can unpack that a bit. Versatile. Working at large sizes and small sizes, but you can also use logo suites to get around that these days as well. And appropriate, right? It should be appropriate for the business and the brand. And that is the most important, I think, and how it encapsulates the brand story within the mark and the wider story as well.
Yeah.
So
you brought up a great point too with the logo suite, because I always try to provide more than less. And like, although you want something that's scalable, that's like, so I'll create like a badge mark that's theoretically like a bit too busy for it to be on the logo for its own. But the reason why I do that is so that I can extract an icon, a word mark, and maybe 2 to 3 other pieces so that they can be used on everything. That way, like my client has a scalable mark that will work just as good as like a small Instagram icon to as big as a billboard, or even on an apparel, on some sort of apparel, or like a word mark that will fit a horizontal layout on a website, and so on and so forth.
yeah, exactly. And you have a great post on this. It was like the Hawaiian tiki brand. I can't remember what it was for. Where you break all this down as well. So I'll try to link that up in the comments. But you can see how a badge logo, which is very detailed, can be extracted down to text and graphic elements and little marks that you can use elsewhere in the brand. And this is when you're going through the logo process, you need to consider like all the different use cases, right? So is it going to be large on like a beer can, or is it going to be really small on a website header, for example? And when we talk about logo suites, you should have different versions of it and not just think about that one logo, which often business owners like, I just need a logo. But actually, no, you need a brand, but you need a suite of logos to work in different use case scenarios like center, vertical, horizontal, display, and so forth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Okay. So what role does taste or instinct play in your process? You kind of mentioned a few things earlier, but like, how do you kind of find that balance?
Of taste, like in my preference of logo design, correct?
Yes.
This is a great concept because, especially for like beginner designers, I find that the biggest like disparaging point of starting in a designer's career is that there's this big gap from their taste to their skill set or level of skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have great taste. They know exactly what's good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're able to produce it, right? And so that will take them away from actually getting started in design or prevent them from growing. But at a place where you can possibly provide a client a wide range of styles or different aesthetics, and it's kind of up to you to find what is the best aesthetic for your client. The goal is really to figure out who's their target demographic, who's going to be using the product, and then kind of the why, like what are you trying to solve with the logo. So usually a lot of my taste, I try to depict who that like client or who the consumer is, and then try to figure out if either like they would wear it on a hat, like, or a t-shirt, or just like on it, if it's a beer can, would they be proud to hold it or drink it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a solid answer. That's what I was looking for, right? It's not particularly our taste, but you have to flip it and think, who are we actually creating this for? It's not the client, it's the client's customers, making sure that they resonate with it as well and can connect with it.
Totally.
But something about your work, right, I've noticed is that you always add extra detail, like you have textures and you'll make the little changes so it has a little bit more finesse and you kind of gives it more edge or more personality. So like, how do you personally go through that process and decide like, oh, okay, this one, needs a little bit of this, a little bit of Cole Friedman pizzazz?
Maybe some of that has to do with me selfishly wanting it to be like a part of my portfolio, or it just, being fun. But at the end of the day, sometimes it comes down to having like a tough conversation with your client too. Like, it's not always about like, I want the client to be happy regardless, right? But sometimes the main goal is not necessarily your client's design choice or perspective, or like what they think or want the logo to be, just because they enjoy pink or black or red or something,
Yeah.
And then so some of those tough conversations just start to unroll where you're like, okay, well, maybe the person that's going to wear this is like 16 to 21 years old. And then you start kind of peeling back these layers of like, okay, well, does that mean it's like scary? Does that mean it's approachable? Does that mean it's funny? Does that, and you kind of find these different things. But I will also pause and say that sometimes just describing isn't all the time. Describing is never enough. Like I always find references from online to help guide those discussions and understand exactly what scary or approachable or funny may be. And then we talk directly to those like attributes. So, you know, if we go into the design process and we go through some of those references and they like the textures or that they liked some of these embellishments and these references, almost like that's mostly where the end result will come from, is some sort of visual reference that we agreed upon.
Well, if we're talking about references now, I'd love to know where you go for inspiration these days, all those references. That'd be great to know.
Just for speed and time, and also just like masses, Pinterest is a great place and resource. It allows me to find one that is within the realm, click it, find a whole group of things that are similar, put together a whole list of mood boards. Because really just need like a really fast and solid foundation of like what we're trying to achieve. And then, I'll put together from Pinterest, I'll put together my own PDFs of mood boards where each page will kind of have their own aesthetic or design direction. And from there, I'm able to consolidate further from client feedback.
So how do you know when the project's done then?
The end result, like the logo, the final logo?
Yeah.
Well, we go from mood boards to like discussion to one pager that will consolidate notes from the discussion. Then we'll go to like round one of logo proposed. So they'll see like two options.
Okay. I was going to ask about that. Like we can unpack that more, right?
Yeah.
So are you presenting just like one or two logos or like mock-ups, or do you have like a whole brand story? Like what's your, I guess, presentation style or process?
Yep. I have tiered pricing. So I'll either just like the logo or the brand. And then my other one is like brand plus, like if you want to do brand plus apparel or packaging or whatever it may be. So let's just use the brand, which is like my primary package, as an example, where it includes two logo options, each proposed with its own kind of design style and like mock-up and secondary element, so that the client feels more meat from just showing logo alone.
Yes.
My logo package is still popular where someone comes in just like, I just need a logo, right? That conversation is drastically changing, especially with the landscape of like AI and stuff, because I just feel like anyone nowadays can just go get that logo. So if they just need a logo, then why are you coming to me, right? You've already done that. So those conversations are fun, and I'm finding a lot more success, and weirdly from the reverse aspect of like, you would think that AI is going to take away, but really I think people aren't fully able to prompt what they're looking for, and that ends up having conversations with people like us. So anyways, back to the
yeah, sorry. There's so many more follow-up questions, but we'll keep going on the track.
I'll run through it quick. So I'll propose with logo and secondary elements. 2 rounds of revisions are included. And then once they approve that, I'll actually build out the whole brand guide. So they have like typography, colors, all the assets needed to actually execute from what I just created for them. And so when the answer to your question is, what I really know a project is over is when I receive the second half of deposit, and then
and
then I provide the assets.
So the two logos, are they kind of two separate styles? Are they completely different, or do they both play into the same story that you've pre-established?
I try to avoid the two different concepts or two different logo options, because what I've realized is that the client actually knows to some degree of like what they want or what they like or what they don't like. And if they're not actually like, if they're having those hesitations, usually it just takes either like one more call or some more time like talking it through, because I don't really like to like waste my time doing the actual execution of the logo when the client just like didn't want that direction anyways. It doesn't matter what you end up producing. Like if they didn't want if they actually wanted a bear and you gave them a lion, then no matter what line you give them, it's not going to be a bear.
So are you sending them? Are you getting approval on a brief first? Like we're going to do the logo. It's going to be a badge format. We're going to do kind of two versions of it, and then you'd send them a sketch, or
Yep, I
What's
go
your
straight to
process?
digital, but all the rest is the same. Yeah, I'll have like a very detailed, not de- a very consolidated but detailed one pager that will pull references from the mood boards that we just talked about, like Pinterest references from online or whatever. Sometimes I'll even go like a little bit further and possibly like tweak them a little bit so that it's like directly related to the client. And
Okay.
then maybe even propose like a little bit of either possible colorways or typography that could be further manipulated. So that way we're basically like hitting every angle of what is going to be used in the logo mark,
Mm.
but definitely like consolidating the idea of, is it a lion or a bear? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So clients don't always know how to talk about design or logos or branding. So like, how do you lead that conversation, get that information, trying to understand what they're looking for? Like, what's your
Yeah.
process there?
That's that's something that I'm continually like learning and just trying to make as easy as possible for my clients, because for me a lot of my clients are new to working with a graphic designer or like new to the creative process in general. And so you don't really want to like scare them with any like designer terminology or just like
Yeah.
gibberish or design language. But same thing in vice versa. Like a lot of my clients will come to me and be like, I just need something really minimal or super clean or just like really bold, or I don't need much, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's just dive into what any of this really means. So I've found the best way to talk client or have a client talk designer is to just wipe away really like any of those fluff words or descript or adjectives that are describing, and go
Mhm.
straight to, okay, visually representing what you do or don't like. And the mood boards help tremendously if I'm able to like point to this reference, and this reference. And if I have like 50 references, right, I know for sure that they hate this style, love this style, and like if only we could kind of just take some of this and put it in here, then they're like, then that would be it. And so that's how I found
Okay.
success.
So you're kind of using more nouns versus adjectives. So looking at, what something is versus that's clean. That's a style of clean. It's kind of bringing it back. Okay. All right. I want to jump back before we're talking about AI, and it kind of leads into that conversation about generic logos, right? And coffee beans, being the thing that people see like the first page of Google.
Yeah.
And if you type coffee logo into, a Gen AI tool, you're going to get something coffee bean related. So I'm curious on your thoughts on AI and this whole idea of generic design and how it's influencing us as an industry, because you mentioned that it's helping, like ironically it's helping you because you're kind of growing from that, because you expand in your services and going beyond just the logo. So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, the as AI grows, like we will have to adapt as designers and the society, to be honest. And so I'm still learning with this like ever changing landscape of AI and design, and I want to make sure that I stay ahead of the curve. But yeah, it has started weirdly turning around to help me, because I'll have these really candid conversations where almost all of my client briefs that they'll bring to me are now AI generated, and there'll be AI references, and not even just AI references, but then they'll have like the actual brief of words like be generated obviously by AI too. It'll be like a whole
Yeah.
page of just like AI slosh, you know what I mean? And they're like, what's also funny is like I used to never even get briefs, right? So now all of a sudden I'm not just getting a brief, I'm getting references, and I'm getting some sort of like detailed direction, which is good in one part. That just means that now my clients are like reaching out with intention. They already like have some sort of idea that they've semi flushed out, which is kind of giving like, a partial part of the legwork for me. But
Mm,
the real conversation is like, okay, so in the past I would have to fight like, do you just want a logo, or like, do you need a brand? And
yes.
so when they show me a logo and they're like, I just need you to like tweak this. And I'm like, well, if you really needed that, like, wouldn't you just need a couple more prompts in Chat GPT and then like be on your way? And they're like, well, I actually need this. And I'm like, oh, so you need uh brand, you need additional assets for social. You don't just
Yeah.
need a logo, you need XYZ. And that opens up a much easier conversation to be like, well, this is like actually what I specialize in. This is what
Yeah.
all of my successful clients come in. And like I just had a conversation with someone that this exact circumstances was with. And they're like, well, have you ever had clients that just go with the logo at first and then they use it and they come back to you for the brand? And I'm like, yeah, but to be frank, like I don't usually hear from them again because they don't really succeed much. And then they get, they're not very happy with like the results, And so, I would say this to you: if you're a brand out there who's just getting started and you're wondering if it's even worth spending money on anything, right? I would say this to you: like, go do your V1 or proof of concept either with ChatGPT or something else, just to make sure that the business is viable, right? Make sure that you're actually able to be profitable of any sort, or that there's even demand for this. Because if there's not, then why are you even putting some money into a graphic designer? Or like, I'm not going to be able to help you if you can't help yourself be a flourishing brand. This is just one aspect of it. And so he was like, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. I was like, so if that's the case, if that's not the case, and you like believe that this is going to be successful and you just need a good brand, then wouldn't you want just like the best foot forward to get started? He's like, yeah, I guess you're right. And now we're going with
Well,
my top package. So those conversations are
yeah, you make
interesting.
them see the light, right? And I think that's what we have to do as not just designers, but consultants, and how we position ourselves as not just like the logo creator, but actually a business partner that can guide them through this path of growing a successful business and showing them what they actually need to achieve that goal as well. And that's kind of what interested me when I was going through your profile. I saw like elements of your logo work, but also helping designers. Like there was a coaching kind of element behind your content. So I'm curious, like, is this like a big part of your purpose is to help younger designers and to coach and so forth?
It's like I always wanted to teach I always wanted to teach. Just fell into being a freelancer full time, and getting started I had none of the answers. I still feel like there's answers that I'm still searching for as I continue to grow in this field, and I don't have all the answers currently, even though I'm confident and feel like I'm successful in my path or career. But there's always more to learn, and I just feel like the more we're able to just talk as designers and share information, it can help each other. And with some things, I just think it's positive for like all of us to be on the same page about stuff, because
Mm,
there's plenty of times where a client will reach out to like 10 people I know or 10 people I follow, and if everyone just has like crazy misinformation or just random things, then I don't want, I want to be on the same page, or I want to make sure that I'm doing the right things that like are aligned with the rest of the field.
yeah, 100%. All right. Before we jump ship into the business side of things, I want to talk about one of the projects that kind of I'm most, what's the word, like resonate with is Better Beer. So for those listeners overseas, Better Beer is an Australian brand here that was launched by some influencers, some comedians here in Australia. And it's, yeah, I'm sure you can tell the story, but you were involved with that project with the packaging and the design. So I just want to tuck into that. Like, how did that gig come about, and tell us more about it?
Yeah, that's actually a really funny story of how this started. And I just think that this is also a powerful moment for any beginner designer to like treat every project the same in a different way. And I guess you'll find out why I say that. But I did the Better Beer label like as one of the first projects within my first year of starting freelance design. Like I have no idea how he found me, but it was he found me on Instagram, and he reached out to 4 or 5 different designers asking that they said that they're making a beer brand and that they need they need a beer label, and they just want me to come up with whatever I believe to be cool. Like they gave me some market research and a little bit of the overarching like idea of what they're sort of looking for, but not
So
necessarily
when
with
you
like.
say they, are you referring to it's uninspired? What's it? The
So
or an
they partnered.
agency?
I don't know how much I should be. They partnered with beverage company. So like the
Okay.
beverage company leveraged the social influence to launch the brand. So
Yes.
at this
Okay.
point, I have no idea who it's for or what it's for. I just know that they need beer packaging, you know?
Okay.
So, so I would, I did the job. I was paid for the job, and like I was never sure if I was ever going to see the brand here or see my work, or if it was ever going to even eventually happen. I mean, I was also just early on, like my process is so different now. I probably would have never accepted a job that like gave me no design direction or actual feedback. Like it was very much like no call. Here's the project. Do you want it? Yes. Okay. Boom. Right. No clue if it's ever going to happen. And then that was actually during COVID. So once COVID ended, they ended up starting to launch the brand. The Inspired Unemployed was involved, but they were much smaller than they are currently. And then I just got to kind of see and take a seat and watch all the assets end up being used and like in the best way possible. And this brand just started absolutely skyrocketing. And now I feel like they're one of the best selling beers in Australia. And I was just out there a month ago and it's everywhere.
It is everywhere. It's one of the fastest growing. I think it's probably the fastest growing beer brand here in Oz. And yeah, it's really it stands out on the shelf. It's clean classics, retro.
Mm-hmm.
It really hits a trend of beer drinkers wanting less calories in their beer, and
Yeah.
I think that the whole range has expanded now. Like they got better cider and better all
Yep.
of this stuff. So did you have an involvement with like the extra SKUs or?
Yeah. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
when I was proposing the initial work, I was just showing different colorways that could be expanded into. And then I wasn't sure what the product offerings would be, but
Okay. Are you involved at all?
no, not anymore. But it was just it was super cool to see it all just flourish and do so well. And it's kind of it's one of those perfect examples of that. Like if you have great design and great marketing or like influence behind the brand, like what true success can happen. And the same way that I'm talking to some of my, like the clients that with the AI references that we're talking about, like they'll come to me and you know, I have to give them a frank conversation that like brand is just one component of a business, you know, like
Mhm.
you can't have a bad, like you need, you can have good product and bad branding. You have bad branding and good product, but like hopefully you're
Yes.
going to find the sweet spot of great product, great branding, and great marketing, and then you get something
Yeah.
like better beer that just ends up booming.
Totally. Yeah, well, let's dive into the business side of things now. Yeah, just on that note, like I like to say that business and brand are two sides of the same coin, right? They have to work together, one another. And talking about business, right? You run your own studio. It's not just about design. Like you got to manage projects, clients, deadlines. Like I'm curious to what your setup looks like behind the scenes.
Yeah, you're basically looking at it, man. Like it's just me. I I pretty much just bootstrap this whole thing. Like I see it as a positive that if a client reaches out to me on their Instagram, like it's me on the DMs, it's me on the initial call, it's me every way through the entire process. You know, some people have like kind of those funny things where they could be me, but they'll create like a assistant email that's just like somebody else's name.
Yeah.
So if like shit ever goes wrong, you could just blame it on Amy. You know,
Boy, I mean,
but at the end of the day, man, it's just like I've tried to gear that to be a positive because I do think it's important, especially with these like small to mid-sized businesses that I'm working with, that they feel connected and almost like there's a friendship that I'm wanting the best for them, and that if I do end up like selling them on a package, right, I'm not just shoveling them off to some junior designer to end up fulfilling the role.
yeah, I mean that's the difference between like a solo business owner and a larger agency or even a small agency. It's like clients don't necessarily know who's going to be working on the work, which some people they don't mind that. Other people they want to work directly with the person that they're hiring. So yeah, there's that. I'm curious, like your tools, your routines, like your boundaries. Like how do you stay in control when running a business as a solo entrepreneur?
Most of this has to do with like the flow of work, which can range like it could vary a bunch. You'll have slow months, you'll have really, really busy months. I'm not typically the type of guy that says no to projects. Like if like demand is like extremely high, then instead of saying no, I just raise the price a little bit to make it make sense for me to work those late hours or weekends. And that's kind of just like what you have to decide as a solo entrepreneur or business owner, that like, how bad do you want this, or, what's worth it to you to take on the project? Because if you say like no, or like maybe in 2 months or something like that, you could possibly lose a client. You have to be okay with that. It sounds like you have a good problem, but the reality is, and like I have to continually think about this, but if you're at the point where you're so busy that you're actually needing to like postpone work or say no to work, and it's work that you typically would take on, you're most likely underpricing yourself. And I would always say that you'd rather have 2 times the price, or you'd rather work half the time for 2 times the price. So continually I'm like either checking in with myself, seeing what my client flow looks like, and seeing where my price point's at. And then, if I'm getting to that point where I'm busy, then I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's time again to possibly raise my prices.
Yeah, they're all those signs, like the classic signs. Like if you don't have the time, then just raise your prices, or as you said. But it is, as a solo business owner, like a double-edged sword, right? It's like you take it on, or you get more busy, and like you have to. It's all this constant battle, right? And it's like you said, is what is it worth to you? Like, what's the value to you? What are you going to get out of it? And there's so many nuances to that. Who is the client? What's the client? What's the visibility? Have I got a holiday planned, or like who do they know? There's so many nuances.
Totally.
Yeah.
And on top of that too, some of the nuances is like, what does success mean to you as a solo entrepreneur or designer? And for me, like design is not my life. Design is a way for me to have a good life or enjoy life a little bit more. And so I don't want to overwhelm myself with business that I'm going to pull out my hair with and possibly end up providing even bad quality work to my clients, which would then result into like a negative business cycle, right? So if you're calm and confident in your career and what you're providing, then I think that like, upping your prices to make sure that you're selective with work, doing the work you want to do and enjoy, it will just bring you back into like a positive cycle of producing great work and having a really nice workflow.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So what do you do to keep sharp, right? How do you avoid burnout when you're doing this full time and managing all the things, spinning all the plates?
It's been a while since I've been burnt out, but honestly, I'm like a little bit there at the current moment. I have a lot of projects at the moment, which I've done a good job of avoiding to this point. But for some reason, like I swear, when they can just like smell you when you're busy, they just like attack you,
Yes. We need to take some of your advice.
Exactly.
Double.
So when I am burnt out, like there's good times to just reset. But like as a human, like, don't do the crazy grinds of like early mornings and late nights and thinking that it's going to stop, and you keep taking on work and doing it over and over again. Like for me, it's really good to get outside, go for a run, go surfing, again, design's not my life. It's just a way to have a better life. So, get back to the reasons of why you're doing things, and then hopefully that will help you avoid that burnout.
Yeah. So what keeps the work fun for you then?
A lot of it has to do with like the space, or just like finding creative solutions. Like I find it fun to either like have a space that's like willing to get a little crazy with things, or like the Aloha pickleball.
You mean like a physical space in your office, or what do you mean by that?
I mean like beverage or consumer products, or
right, like a niche that you work
in.
Okay.
Like not doctors' offices or real estate brochures, right?
All
like
right.
those would
so work you want to be doing.
Absolutely. And so some of these products have been really lucky, and they're like, so I did this jerky brand, and they're like, I want to be the liquid death of jerky. And I'm like, you came to the right place. Yeah. Yeah. So, when I get a great client like that, who's just like willing to get a little outside the box and crazy, then it makes my job a lot easier and more fun. And especially when they're like willing to get, more fun and creative, I end up just like taking on more parts of that they necessarily like didn't ask me to do, just because I want to either use it as a portfolio piece or just enjoy the process. And so they end up getting more from what they paid, and they're happier at the end too. So it's like a good synergy.
Yeah, it's a win-win all around, right? Like if you don't want to be working on something, you don't put your heart into it, and it's just like the results aren't going to be the same as if you're truly passionate about something.
Yeah, like right now I'm super busy and like got some like doctor's office that reached out and they're like, I need business cards by next week, and I'm like, sorry man, just like not in the
I don't do
cards.
doctor's offices unless it's like a cool doctor's office. That's, I don't know if that's such a thing, but it's like for bikies or something.
So again, yeah, it's not a space I'm just like not going to say no to, but you know, if I can sniff out if it's going to be a fun project, then we'll talk.
So what's the project that you're particularly proud of, like logo or like a brand?
Yeah, that jerky brand that I just mentioned is one of my favorites. They really were able just to get pretty crazy with like what you would typically see on shelves, and that's one of the ones that I actually think is funny, and it like he does zero to no marketing, and the marketing he does do, like even though he created a whole brand guide, like he doesn't stick to any of the brand guide. He's all over the place. It's like honestly just not kept up super well, but the packaging is incredible. And so it's funny to see what could possibly happen with honestly just like really great packaging. And they're selling like really, like they're all of a sudden like nationwide and selling super well.
Oh, wow.
And so
Nice.
I wish he would just keep up with some of the branding. And I think obviously it would just like, you know, elevate everything that he's doing and more. But it is cool to see something just at the basis level. If you just create something really, really good, that there is a chance that you just don't need anything else.
Yeah, it's like that's a crappy startup kind of phase in the beginning when they're like just testing the waters, like seeing how it goes, and eventually they'll realize, okay, well, there's something in this. Like actually, get some resources together to really elevate it. I think it is a big, like it's a common challenge that we as creatives have is like you create something and you pass it off, you pass the totem, and then it's like good luck, and it's like you see your work sometimes really look amazing, and then you're like, no, that's not my work anymore.
Yeah.
And it's this is one of those things you have to live with. But I'm curious, do you have any methods to help them with that, to getting them launched across the line and actually keeping to those guidelines and so forth?
Yeah, I've seen both sides of the coin. Like Better Beer, like I wasn't able to keep up with the branding and marketing, and they've just done an incredible job, and like they've actually enhanced my portfolio piece by doing such great work and just absolutely exploding. So it's like a celebratory moment for me where I'm able to be like, look how big this brand is great. Like I did the packaging, but a lot of the pieces of it is like not what I made for them, or like they were able to evolve from what was created. You'll have rare moments like that, but then you'll have the opposite, right, where you create incredible work and then it's just not used, or they pass it off to a junior designer, or even like a Canva queen kind of deal, and then it's just they're inverting the logo improperly. I like the jerky guy put the entire pattern I did for them on a Tesla inverted, like improperly. And I don't think he loves it. Like I don't think he cares or like even knows that that's a problem. But like for him, for example, like I still do some work for him, and we'll have conversation. I'm like, hey, just like keep an eye out for anyone using the wrong logo files. But at the end of the day, like I don't think he gives a shit, or like I don't think a lot of these clients do. Like it's at the end of the day, it's not our brand. It's like the same way of when you want to make a logo for somebody, like it's not necessarily for you or the designer, like your needs or our needs as designers of trying to make it look like what we want it to look like should just go all the way out the door. Like at the end of the day, I think if client's happy and it hits the consumer demographic, then it's, we did a good job.
Our ego, Cole. What about our egos?
I mean, that's the thing. I think we have to leave our egos at the door. I mean, it's easier said than done, but at the beginning of our career, I think we want every project we do to be like our glorified portfolio piece. And then all of a sudden, when you do a couple hundred projects, right, you're like, it's okay. Let's just make sure we do a good job for the client.
And you can't keep up with your portfolio. It's like, I'll update it next week, next year. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good part about social media and keeping up with like brand presence is that I found social media so much better to be able to just be like, here's a quick post where I just made this, here you go, and then like,
Yeah.
roll out. So if you are looking to see my most current projects, like Instagram is a great place.
Yeah. All right. So you have advice for creatives and designers. So I'm going to ask, like, for designers trying to go solo, like, what's your real advice? You've been through the ropes. Like, what information would you pass on to
Yep.
people trying to go solo?
Uh, if I was to do it all over again, I would do it actually like very similarly as I did do it, which is funny, but it was just not calculated at the time. But I can see the steps that were successful, and then I would try to either tweak it or implement it the same way. And one of them being is like, don't immediately quit your day job. I think
Mm.
that there needs to be a smooth transition into freelance and understanding the demand. If you're currently working at an agency, I would say that you're in a great place to test the waters with freelance. And when I say that, I mean you should start an Instagram account, you should start branding yourself, and you should start putting out work that you want to receive. And then by doing that, if you start seeing, some demand for your work, start tracking how much money you make a month, right? Like for me, I was making dog shit at my agency company, and it was really easy to tell that a month's worth of freelance work was the same amount or like double what I was making at my agency job. And I was like, stepping away from this, like, it just makes so much sense, right? So, everyone talks about the leap into freelance, right? Like, I would not suggest any sort of leap. I would be very calculated about that smooth transition from agency into freelance. And then also just like, I was just talking to a friend of mine who is a graphic designer, and she was just stuck doing really crappy jobs her whole life that she just didn't enjoy. And she would put that in her portfolio and was wondering why she was receiving more crappy jobs, right? And I'm like, this is what you need to do. You create fake pieces. We call them fake, but they're extremely real. You're creating them, right? But like, it doesn't need to be for somebody. Make up a fake brand, make up a fake anything, and then post it and show it. And you'll be surprised how quickly you'll start receiving that work. And for her, she wanted to do like magazine layouts and like Vogue designs or whatever. So she started making fake magazine layouts and Vogue stuff, and she got a job like within a month. I think it's a really powerful
Is
tool.
that what you'd say like is worth investing your time on early on? Is like creating portfolio pieces for work that you want to be known for?
Yeah, and I think adding on to that, niching is super powerful. People will talk about like, well, there's just no room for me in the graphic design space anymore. Like, there's so many graphic designers, everyone's so good. Like, how is there room for me in the space? And that's where I think just niching is so powerful, because you don't need to be the best at everything. I think that the leaders in this space are starting to be masters at like one specific thing. So like, if you're really good at hand-drawn art, or if you're really good at characters, or if you're really good at logo design, or like, simple monograms or whatever, then like, don't feel like you need to do all three of those or even like 10 different segments. Like, focus on what you're good at and just push that work like consistently. And I think people will gravitate towards you even more so because they know that they're in good hands for that specific niche.
Totally. Yeah. The runway you talk of, the smooth transition, it's a similar story like yours. Is like you work for an agency and you have a decent income, it's okay. But once you make that switch, you suddenly have more time to work on your business and put work out there and actually grow. And you'll find that it actually goes much faster because you suddenly have more time to work on it and get your name out
Absolutely.
there.
So
So you have
funny,
to keep
right?
that in mind. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I
exactly.
was wearing all the hats at my agency job, like just pumping out work. Everything that came through the door, I was doing anyways. And I was just getting paid like a really crappy salary. So it was crazy when I started like figuring out what I'm supposed to charge. And like, at first everyone charges 100, 200, $300 for a logo, right? And like, so I was like, that's how I'm going to scale. Just like, let's do like $100 logos, and then that's all I need to do. So that's how you get burnt out. But, at least, I did that and learned, and just by repetition as well, I became a better designer. But where I was going with that is just like, you'll very quickly see that, like, I used to make like $800 in a week at the agency job. And now, that's not even close to my lowest logo package. Right.
Yep.
So I could theoretically make that in a couple hours or a day now. So you'll very quickly understand how easily viable this career path can be.
Awesome. All right, Cole. I think we're going to wrap this up. We're having a little quick fire round if you're up for it.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. A logo you wish you had designed.
Now I'm just trying to think of like cool logos that I like. I feel like a lot of beer brands have really great logos. And especially like the badges. I think Miller Lite just went back to their like retro style logo. I don't know why that first came to mind, or like a Pabst Blue Ribbon badge that was always cool. I don't know why that's where my mind went.
Yeah, I think we're on the beer track at the moment.
Maybe I'm thirsty, man. But those badges are super cool.
Favorite non-design tool you use in your business?
Excel or Zoom.
Did you say Excel?
Yeah, Excel.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool.
Like that's how I keep up with all of my payments and transactions and whatnot. So like I'm pretty bootstrapped. I try not to pay the third-party fees for stuff.
Oh man, teach me. So many subscriptions.
Like there's like QuickBooks and stuff and all that, and like they charge like a decent amount of fees. So I just want to make sure that I'm like not paying the big man.
Subscriptions and subscriptions. Yeah. I feel you. Okay. One designer you think think more people should follow?
Miles Mendoza. He's the man. He's a good friend of mine, and he does incredible work.
Miles Mendoza, is that?
Yeah, Miles Mendoza. Mendoza
Okay,
Creative
awesome.
at Mendoza Creative.
All right. And last two questions. What's one principle you think, you try to bring in every project, like no matter the scope or the budget?
Principles I'd bring into like a logo design, just making it like the unique, and this would be a good place like where I try to bring in like combine the 3-element rule of thumb, and that way at the end of it I'm like, I didn't just give them a boring logo,
generic, boring, give them an unsucky logo. That's okay, awesome. Lastly, where can people follow your work, reach out to you, connect, and so forth, and anything else you want to share?
Follow me at Cole F Design. That's where I post my most current work and where I'm most active. And I'm also on TikTok, but I've yet to start doing the dances. So if you're going to follow me there, just be aware of what type of content may come.
Oh man, Cole, I've had a blast. You've been a treat to interview, and love logos, love business, love helping other creators. So really resonate with your story, and thank you for sharing with our listeners. So.
Yeah, you've been incredible. Thanks so much for having me, and I hope that whoever's listening can hopefully get some bits of information here that they're able to use in their day-to-day career.
Thanks, mate.
Building extraordinary